in Jamaica we have a saying, say, boy, when somebody salt, when somebody salt, them salt bad. Boy come like Godfrey, yeah, like Godfrey Wade, like he must do deed in a church. Me I tell you, me never say a man salt, so no sir. When somebody bitter, when somebody vex, when somebody feel wronged by life, we say them salt. Jamaican terminology, man say boy, it was bad luck. But today we are not just talking about the ordinary salt. No sir. This man, today we are talking about a level of saltness. Yeah man, a Jamaican terminology, that's a level of saltness that reach international waters. A story that cross borders. A story that raises serious questions about justice, fairness, and what happens when the system treats a man like a number instead of a human being. So we are going to let you watch some video, and with Godfrey Wade story, because the man we are talking about today is him. Yeah man, Godfrey Wade, an honorably discharged veteran, a man who served the United States military with honor, courage, and commitment. A man who is not a violent offender, a man and a drugs dealer, the typical Jamaican who come off and no want work. No, I know him that. I do some little minor hiccups. He's not a violent offender, not a career criminal, not a gang member. Yet today, that same man is being sent back to Jamaica like he's disposable. Now listen carefully. This is not about anyone is perfect. This is not about saying the law should not exist. This is about asking one simple question. Does the punishment fit the reality? Because when you look at this case closely, you start to see something troubling. You start to see how technical labels, paperwork and bureaucratic decisions can uproot a life, separate families and turn a veteran into a deportee overnight. How this man shouldn't get deported. So now I don't defund deportee, but him shouldn't. So today we are going to talk about it. We are going to break down the facts. We are going to separate emotion from evidence. And we are going to ask whether justice is really being served, or whether this is one of those moments where the system forgets that human being behind the file. Because in Jamaica we know when a man salt, him salt bad. But today we ask why. So I want you, what you listen and you decide, because you're going to see some videos with from various news media outlets, CNN and the likes, about with Godfrey Wade. Him salt bad, me I tell you. Me never see a man salt. Me don't know what him do in a church. He was piss all in a one church where him a go. But maybe Godfrey can call me and tell you. Where I tell you, say him salt bad. So you watch, you listen, and you decide. And look here. This man get deported, and the man is not a criminal, not a convicted criminal. When I say criminal, we attack somebody with felony. This man is what he's deported for is nothing to do with the 1 year, 1 day sentence. You understand? Them say about probation and all of them things. That's a minor something. So you watch, you listen, and you decide.
You came here lawfully in 1975. What's going through your mind this morning now that you've been removed?
Well, good morning, sir, and good morning to your audience. At this time, what's going on in my mind is just the assurity that I will have my day in court. My legal team is working very hard for that to happen. So we are trusting in the justice system of my beloved country, the United States of America, that I loved very much and served. And we want one hearing, one opportunity, one chance to be heard. It doesn't even have to be my day. It could be 1 hour.
Let me read for you. You were pulled over in September for failing to signal, then arrested for driving without a license. I want your response to the DHS statement when they say ICE arrested Godfrey Oliver Wade, a criminal illegal alien from Jamaica. His criminal history includes domestic assault, criminal trespass, reckless conduct, deposit account fraud, violation of probation, multiple arrests for driving on a suspended license. In 2014, an immigration judge ordered him removed after he failed to show up for his immigration hearing. This repeat offender is now off our streets and no longer able to terrorize Americans. Tell me, what is your response to what DHS says?
That's not correct. The three charges that's standing is one, a 911 call from my ex-wife. When I was given a divorce decree, I objected to it. So in the effort to remove me from the home, which is our marriage home, a 911 call was called. Yeah. There was no assault. Secondly, the fraudulent check was a bounce check that upon given notice that the check was bounced, I made full restitution to the tag office. Yeah. And thirdly, the disruption of anything else was not correct. And I've never driven on a suspended license. I never had my license on person because they took the license physically away from me, and I was unable to renew. Yeah. And that is the story as it stands today. Those are the only three charges, and I'm not a criminal. I've worked and paid taxes all my life.
April, let me come to you. After trying to avoid this for months, he's now 1,200 miles away. What's that mean, and what's that feel like for your family?
A lot of sadness. It's a very challenging time right now. You know, we were building a life together. It has affected me emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially, because he's now no longer able to contribute in the ways that he was able to contribute. So just having the ability to see him, touch him, all of those things has been extremely, extremely challenging.
Wade has lived in the U.S. for more than 50 years. The Jamaican-born veteran had been in ICE custody for nearly 5 months. He was pulled over for failing to use a turn signal in Conyers and arrested for driving without a license. Wade spoke over the weekend about his deportation.
We want one hearing, one opportunity, one chance to be heard. It doesn't even have to be my day. It could be 1 hour.
Wade's attorney says an emergency stay of removal was denied, but an appeal is pending. And according to the Homeland Security documents CBS News obtained, nearly 60% had criminal charges for convictions, but fewer than 14% of the people ICE arrested had violent criminal records. Nearly 40% did not have any criminal record at all and were only accused of civil immigration offenses, and they include living in the U.S. illegally or overstaying their permission to be in the country.
Godfrey Wade, who spent nearly 5 months in U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement custody, remains optimistic despite a previous ruling. Details in this report.
We want one hearing, one opportunity, one chance to be heard.
65-year-old Godfrey Wade, in an interview with CNN outlining what he's hoping for as he awaits the outcome of his appeal for his immigration case in the United States. The 65-year-old U.S. Army veteran, who had lived in the U.S. for 50 years as a lawful permanent resident, was deported to Jamaica last week after an emergency stay of removal was denied.
I'm not a criminal. I've worked and paid taxes all my life.
His path to deportation began on September 13, 2025, when he was pulled over for failing to use a turn signal in Conyers, Georgia. He was arrested for driving without a license. Soon after, ICE detained him due to a 2014 removal order stemming from a 2007 bounce check and a 2006 simple assault charge. he addressed the issues.
So in the effort to remove me from the home, which is our marriage home, a 911 call was called. There was no assault. Secondly, the fraudulent check was a bounce check that upon given notice that the check was bounced, I made full restitution to the tag office. And thirdly, the disruption of anything else was not correct.
It's understood that the removal order was issued when Wade did not show up for a 2014 hearing he was not notified of, as they were sent to an old address. Attorneys say court records show hearing notices sent to an address used by ICE were returned as undeliverable, and so he was unaware of the removal order until his arrest. The 65-year-old has been dealt a hard blow, but when asked whether he looked at the United States differently,
absolutely not. I love this country. I am the ultimate Jamaican, as we would say. My children are American, my grandchildren are American, and I mentor hundreds, if not thousands, of American young people. And for me to respond differently, it would be an atrocity. I love this country and everything it stands for. We believe in the justice system, and we know they're going to do the right thing.
with Wade now deported and his appeal pending, it's a waiting game for his legal team, as courts often prioritize cases of persons currently in the United States.
We no see no one where we afraid of. We no afraid. We no see no one where we afraid of. Yeah, this is Everton Blender. And it's all about the young police from Jamaica, seeing Young Police Channel. Big up yourself. Everton Blender said that. We no afraid. We no see no one where we afraid of.
Yes, welcome to the Jamaica Young Police Channel. To our loyal viewers, subscribers and Patreon members. At the channel, we are a group of law-abiding citizens who believe in the rule of law and respect the rights of every citizen, but not the ones who do not subscribe to such behavior. We do believe in and support preemptive strikes because they save lives. This is a logical conclusion because preemptive strikes save lives and prevent the further loss of lives. We are all about saving lives at this channel. We at the channel aid criminals with a passion and do not want them over here. We do not want your views, your subscriptions, your likes, or your comments. Please go elsewhere where the red carpet is waiting for you. Over here, we want you to go to prison or the departure lounge at Madden. Yeah, so moving on to today's video. Remember that this channel is a channel that celebrates informers. We do believe that informers must live, and every killers must go straight to the departure lounge. We don't even believe in prison, because if you take a life of someone willfully, without justification, that's where you should belong. The same rights that you want, that's the same rights that your victim supposed to enjoy. So, moving on to today's video. As I said before, and I'll say again, why Godfrey Wade, I saw this man. This man that must be pissing at church or DD or doo-doo in our church make him so salt. May I tell you the truth? Because everything we happened to this man is just unbelievable. Now, let me be clear with you, my audience. Justice is not about what the government does wrong. Sometimes it is about what individuals feel to do for themselves. So this is like, you know, call it Godfrey him cause a problem upon himself. Reason being, he has been in the country for over 5 decades, and he had some problems, and guess what? The man did not renew his green card, because for 13 years there's a removal order there for him to deport him out of the country, and he didn't know that. If he had renewed his green card, he wouldn't have any problem. And now you know that he's looking back and said, why I didn't file for my citizen then, after I get discharged from the military. Maybe at the time when he was discharged, it was a year $80 or thereabout for getting citizenship. Maybe it all depends on his religious belief or what, some people, based on an experience in the military, experience racism, because it was rampant then, and men like Godfrey Wade paved the way for, others from other immigrants and black people to join the military and experience racism, but the temperature was lower. Well, right now, say the temperature high, because them hide it now, them are sure you say them racist. Justice is not only about what the government does wrong. Sometimes it is about what individuals fail to do for themselves. Because while we can debate whether deportation was fair, we must ask a harder question. Where was the urgency? There was none by Godfrey, none whatsoever. Godfrey Wade lived in the United States for decades, not months, not a few years, decades, 50 years not there. A lawful permanent resident knows or should know that immigration status is not something you put on autopilot. Green cards expires. Addresses change. Mail get missed. And when you do not keep your paperwork current, you put your entire future at risk. 12 years pass between the removal order and the traffic stop that expose it. 12 years. That is not a clerical delay. That is a long window of time when something could have been checked, renewed, challenged, or corrected. So while some people want to paint this story as only government overreach, the truth is more complicated than that. Because life in America demands vigilance. It demands that you check your documents, that you update your address, that you stay informed about your legal status. The system may be unforgiving, but ignoring it does not make it disappear. And this case shows us something important. Sometimes a man is not only fighting the law, sometimes he's fighting the consequences of neglect. And that is what Godfrey has been doing. And it's so sad. I will say before, I will say again, I want salt, brother, believe you me. You understand. Godfrey's, this man is salt like Peter. So ladies and gentlemen, imagine serving a country wearing a uniform, defending its values, only to discover that years later, your life in that same country can be erased because of a bounce check and a domestic argument. No robbery, no violence, no weapons, no drug trafficking, no gang business. Just two minor incidents from nearly 20 years ago. So, yet under US immigration law, those incidents were labeled crimes involve moral turpitude. So this is like a felony, moral turpitude. That phrase, moral turpitude, sounds like something from the 1800s. But in today's legal system, it still holds enormous power. Some people that say, but look on Donald Trump. Oh, you have to understand white supremacy, that you understand what I'm saying. So you can't talk about that because he was born here. And the same depraved mind people them vote for him. You have to understand, people who are criminal-minded people are always sympathetic and emphasize with criminals. The phrase moral turpitude sounds like something from the 1800s, but in today's legal system, it still holds enormous power. It can strip a lawful permanent resident of their green card, separate families, and deport people who have lived in America for decades. In the case of Godfrey Wade, that is exactly what happened. A removal order issue without him even knowing about the hearing. a decade passes, then a routine traffic stop turns into detention and deportation. They could have, based on what happened, they could have cut him some slack because he's a veteran, but you have to understand, First thing first, Godfrey is black. When you're black, you step back. In this town, when you're black, them tell you that you don't play around with them system because America is built on racism and hatred toward black people. Whether or not you want to believe it. I will say before and we say again, in the United States, USA mean you suffer alone. Nothing else. You understand? So, you just have to give thanks to life. America is one of the wickedest and one of the greatest country on earth. So you have to just play by the rules, and it's not who is right is what is right. That's how it is done. Especially when you're black. When you're black, you can't play with the system and everything there. You know, I get no slack. When you're black and you're 12, you're an adult. When you're white and you're 40, you're a youth, young man. So them and when they read the news in America with crimes. So remember in a Godfrey Wade case, I remove a lot of issue without him knowing even about the hearing. A decade passes, then a routine traffic stop turns into detention and deportation. I know it's supposed to be a wicked nightmare for this man. Today, we are not here to shout. We are here to understand. Because when laws operate in the shadows of technical language, citizens, immigrants, and even veterans can all become vulnerable. So today we ask, what exactly is moral turpitude? Why can it destroy someone's immigration status? Was due process respected? And what does this case reveal about the broader system? Let's break it down. So you have some Jamaican people who come foreign, shoplift and all of these things, and them have them green card. Some of them, if them leave the country right now, people shoplift and them go court, whether them beat the case or not, then we just use that against your moral turpitude and keep you out of the country. One of the most dangerous things in law is not the crime itself. It is the classification of the crime. In immigration law, the phrase crime involving moral turpitude, or CIMT, is one of the most powerful and controversial classifications in the entire system. The term does not appear in everyday life. You won't hear it in criminal courts much, but in immigration law, it carries life-changing consequences. So that's why if you get arrested, like Jamaicans where guard jail and Jamaican, they come off foreign and put it on them, get citizenship. If the American government find out that, they must take it from you because that is moral turpitude. Crime involving moral turpitude. It has to do with your character. And this term now appear in everyday life. A crime involving moral turpitude is generally defined as an offense involving fraud, dishonesty, intent to deceive, or conduct considered morally reprehensible. Notice something important. The definition is not concrete. It is not a list of exact crimes. Dishonesty, fraud, intent to deceive, or conduct considered morally reprehensible. It is a legal interpretation. And when a legal interpretation is broad, it becomes discretionary. When it becomes discretionary, outcomes becomes unpredictable. That is exactly what we see in the Wade case. So let us examine the two incidents that trigger the immigration consequences. Deposit account fraud 2007. Discharge arose from a bounce check written to a tag office. Now in criminal law, a bounce check can be treated as fraud only if they were intended to deceive. But in everyday life, people bounce check for many reasons. Banking error, temporary financial hardship, delayed deposits. According to his attorney, the amount was later repaid in full. So the question becomes, was this an intentional fraud scheme or a result financial mistake? And people can write bad check, people can write bounce check. Because you write the check for you say you have the money and it returned. But I think they must have changed it. I don't know if them change the law. You understand? But, you know, that's how we do it with the DMV. So them I state. When the state comes for a different thing. So the question becomes, was this an intentional fraud scheme or a result financial mistake? Can be. Sometimes somebody write a check because you have to understand, you know, 80% of people who live in America live paycheck to paycheck, you know, and including the one that were poor. Or say poor, no matter truly you see them white, the majority of white people in America, them poor, them uneducated, and I can go on, them can't read, them can't think, all them just, only thing to them have to set them white. And you know what white mean? White mean terrorism and the history will go with whiteness. Nothing else. Them can't read, them can't write, and them can't compete in the workforce. In immigration law, however, once an offense is categorized as fraud, it can be labeled as CIMT, even if the underlying situation was minor. That is the first domino. The second incident involved a domestic dispute during a divorce. According to reports, pots and pans were knocked over, milk was spilled. No physical violence was alleged. No injuries, no weapons, no documented assault. Yet the charge remained on record. Immigration courts often treat domestic related offenses very seriously, even when the underlying facts are minimal, because they can be interpreted as disorderly or aggressive conduct. Again, classification matters more than context, and both of these incidents were categorized as crime involving moral turpitude. They create a legal pathway for removal proceedings. So you don't have to go to jail for them deport. You don't have to go to prison. You don't have to do 1 year or 1 month for get, because him never go to prison and them deport him. So this is the first way I know something like this happen. We're not talking about somebody overstaying, somebody live here for 50 years legally. Many people believe once you obtain a green card you are safe. That is not true. Lawful permanent residence is not citizenship. It is conditional residency. Under immigration law, a green card holder can be deported if they commit certain crimes, fail to maintain status, or violate immigration conditions. 2. Crime involving moral turpitude, even misdemeanor, can trigger deportation proceedings. So this case is supposed to open up a lot of many people's eyes, because this man, you know, never commit a felony, you know, and he never go to prison, and he have a conviction. And once those proceedings begin, the system move forward regardless of how minor the original incidents were. Now we arrive at the most troubling aspect of this case, the immigration hearing in 2014. According to the legal team, notice of the hearing was mailed to an old address. It was returned as under the deliverable. So that's why when you have your green card and you move from one address to the other, you update it with USCIS. Them tell you that when you get your green card. So you go into the system and you register, you make them know, say this is where you live. Because that the address where them have on file, that is where they must send any documentation. So you update it. Yet the court proceeded anyway. This is called absentia removal order. meaning the order is issued when the individual is not present. In theory, this exists to prevent people from avoiding hearings. So although them said undelivered, the court no business, they must say, well, him that I address when them have fee man file, because you know, so the law, them say ignorance is no excuse to the law. But in practice, it can create serious due process concerns if someone never knew the hearing was happening. If you never received notice, how can you defend yourself? You can't. How can you present evidence? You can't, because you don't know that it is happening behind your back. So that's why every time when you move as an immigrant, you update your immigration status with them. You go online and you go to USCIS or State and you update it with your green card and you give them your address. Because every correspondence you're going to get through them. Because you will come through the airport and then they'll turn you back. Because them, you understand? How can you argue context? You can't argue because you're not there. So this is where the legal debate becomes constitutional, not administrative. A decade passes, life continues, then comes a routine traffic stop. Oh, you now have the green card. 12 years. So them can be technical on him now and say, wait, number one, you know, your immigration status, you're out of your immigration status, because you don't have no papers, you agree, because you have to understand, you know, immigration is all about money, because you have to pay for renewing your green card. Every 10 years you have to pay for renewing your green card. And it have expiry date. So him in the country and he never had no status too. There's so many reasons give him for them deport him. In the renewing green card, there's a deportation order out for send him back to where he come from. And him not even know because he never do that. And when he had the chance to apply for his citizenship, he never do it. Spend whether $60 or $80 then. You understand? In modern policing, database are instantaneous. An officer runs on him and the system flags a removal order. At that moment, the past becomes the present. In a Georgia, a state of Georgia, in a red state them, for your black, you know say the system is against you because it's racism. Without not you want to believe it. Racism rampant. All this is some black people that kick up and go on. They want us talking for the system. Because from you understand, I saw the system. You have to understand. In America, everywhere I south, you know, North I can hear than bother as the south go down. Don't bother feel like say, you know, some state different, like, you know, some liberal state, if I'm in a liberal state, they would have cut him some slack and all of these things. And try to help him, the money, hand him over to the immigration, but red state, they go jail. So at the moment, when time pull him over, traffic stop, boy him pass become president. 2014 catch up with him, and the law does not care how long ago the incident occurred. The existence of the order alone is enough to trigger detention. This is how people who have lived quietly for years suddenly find themselves facing deportation. So this is like the man whole world just crumble down when them tell him, say, boy, there's a deportation, and them fight still though, you know. But you have to understand, say, racism at its best. They let him give him a stay and say, alright, make us see, can him leave him, the man not involved in a crime, the gang business, make us see and work out this thing while him appeal. Them deport him, because him black. The legal appeal now focuses on two arguments. One, offences were minor and resolved. Two, he never received the notice of the hearing. This raises a broader question for viewers. What does due process actually mean? In American law, due process include notice of proceedings, opportunity to respond, and the ability to present a defense. If any of those elements fail, the legitimacy of the outcome can be questioned. This is not about politics. It is about whether procedures were followed correctly. Him put himself in a bind in so many ways. If you understand where them have so many reasons for that to readmit him. but hopefully they will. But this will teach other people a lesson. The moral turpitude debate. This case has received a long-standing debate among legal scholars. Critics argue that the crime involving moral turpitude is outdated language, inconsistently applied, overly broad, and subject to interpretation. Supporters argue it allows immigration courts to maintain standards of conduct and to protect public trust. The truth lies somewhere in between. But what cannot be denied is that the phrase moral turpitude carries enormous weight despite lacking a precise definition. Why this case matters? This is not just about one individual. It affects immigrants who believe their past mistakes are behind them, veterans who serve the country but lack citizenship, families who rely on permanent residence for stability, and communities who assume legal status guarantee permanence. This case reminds us that immigration laws operates differently from criminal law. In criminal court, a case ends with sentencing. In immigration law, consequences can resurface decades later. The lesson is not outrage. The lesson is awareness. Know your status, know your record, know the immigration consequences, even minor charges. Because what looks small in criminal court can look enormous in immigration court. And once the machinery of immigration enforcement starts moving, it really stops on its own. This case forces us to ask, should decades-old minor offenses outweigh years of lawful living? Should administrative errors lead to life-altering consequences? Should legal labels matter more than real world context? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. Because justice is not about enforcing the law. It is about ensuring the law operates fairly, consistently, and transparently. And when we examine cases like this, we do not weaken the system, we strengthen it. And we just hope that Wade, Godfrey, them be able to readmit him back to the country, because his case is unique. First I see a case like this ever. A case where, involving moral turpitude. This will become like adultery in the military. Yeah, in the United States military, if you're married and you cheat on your wife, them can charge you. Charge you for adultery and kick you out of the military. That's a criminal record itself, adultery. If you're married, you're supposed to stay faithful. If a man in the military and married, him can't have all a million girls, but once you're married, I just your wife alone. So that's another lesson for those who in the military and don't even know that. But this case is an eye-opening case. First we see a case like this where somebody get deported, never been to prison. The 1 year, 1 month rule or 1 week rule never applies to him. Moral case involving moral turpitude. Have yourself a beautiful day. Jamaica Young Police Channel out.